Hi everyone, if you're watching. This is the Python and Entrepreneurship panel session. This was an idea that Reuven had very, very last minute. It was super sudden and just a good idea for figuring out how we can get more people to be successful in business with Python. And, obviously because this is PyCon Africa, we'd love to see more Africans being successful with this as well. I know, so I'm going to be hosting the panel session, and I'm going to be hosting it with Mannie. So Mannie, I don't know if you want to introduce yourself really quick as well.
Okay, my name is Mannie Young, and I'm a co-organizer of PyCon Africa and a community builder in Python Ghana. And it's actually an honor to share this stage with you all.
Yay! Awesome. So we don't have much time, and we'd like to have a lot of time for question and answer for people in the comments to ask us questions. So I'm going to go around and ask the panelists that have joined us, the very cool people, to just introduce yourself briefly. And you have about 3 minutes to talk about yourself and to talk about what you do with Python, how that's related to entrepreneurship or business. So if you could share that really quickly. So I'm going to go in the order that's on my screen. So the first person is Trey. So Trey, I know Trey well from the PSF, but you can go ahead and start.
Wow, I was thinking introduction. I could use 3 seconds. Why do I need 3 minutes? I teach people Python code. In terms of entrepreneurship, first thing I do is I go on-site to teach teams. Obviously, right now I'm not going on-site anywhere, so doing everything remotely. I got into that from doing web programming on a for-hire basis. I saw myself as a freelancer, kind of a hand for hire. Eventually realized I should probably call myself a consultant because it sounds fancier. And did web programming, kind of making sure that I was talking to the person who owned the company. The higher you are to the, going up to the top of the company, talking to the CEO, the closer you are to solving business problems as opposed to solving who knows what problem. And doing web, or doing training now in Python, it's a different ballpark. I really love the fact that I can go in and teach people to do the things that I was previously doing. I don't have to do them myself. I'd much rather teach someone how to do the thing I was doing than do it myself. And now I'm trying to make my own kind of online business, making money from individuals as opposed to companies, which is interesting because I don't want to charge individuals, since charging companies feels a lot easier for me. But of course, charging individuals, you need to somehow make money. And that's something I've been kind of trying to figure out how to grapple with. How do you charge individuals in an ethical way? And I know Reuven has ideas on that. I discount ideas from you as well. But yeah, that's kind of my background, is originally freelance, doing web consulting for people in Python. I was really grateful to be able to learn Python on the job in my first freelancing job. So I do want to have a big caveat here. Most of us probably would agree that there's a huge, huge factor of luck in many parts of our careers, probably, to get to where we are. Figuring out how to make that luck actually happen and increase the chance of that luck happening for you, I feel like is one of the biggest factors in working for yourself. Because, if you can increase that luck factor somehow artificially, you're really going to be able to help yourself, because there's a lot of things that end up resulting in you being gainfully employed that are out of your control, but even if they're in your control, really shouldn't matter. Like who you know, and who they know, and whether those people happen to have money and they happen to also need things that you need. So that's, I guess, big caveat there, that figuring out how to increase those artificial things that will result in your success, that's the thing I would try to do.
Very cool. Thank you, Trey. That was really insightful, and it's great to hear your journey. That's a good tip. Change from calling yourself a freelancer to a consultant. Let's all just change to that now. Reuven, you're next on my screen.
Hi, everyone. So I have had my own consulting business for about 25 years now. Shocking as that is for me to say. But, you know, we've paid the mortgage, we went on vacation, so far so good. And I started out like a lot of freelancers, basically saying, I will do anything. You have a problem, I'll do it. Oh, you're using Technology X? Of course I know Technology X. Next day, buy the book on Technology X. Go in 2 days from then. Yes, I can use Technology X. And most of the time, it's actually fooled them pretty well. If you're one of my former clients, by the way, I did not fool you at all. I really knew what I was talking about. In any event, over the years, I learned in many ways the hard way, and in many ways through learning insight from other people, that the best way to succeed in business is not to be all things to all people, but to really sort of be a big fish in a small pond. And so I started doing what I do more and more. So
there's a pretty bad echo coming from you. I'm not sure. It's pretty bad echo. I'm not sure what it is actually.
It disappeared earlier briefly.
Coming from. Maybe that's like affecting somehow. I don't know. I'll bring the mic. Is this better? No. Very exciting, people.
Did everyone else go on mute?
Oh, maybe that would be doing it. Everyone else mutes. And I control of the session. Hello. Is that better now? Less echo? Well, we can't hear you, so okay. So, all right. Well, let's hope. In any event, over the last no, I don't have another tab. Good thought though. I'll just like close a ton of other stuff, but I don't think so. In any event, I went from doing lots of programming, yay, lots of programming in lots of ways, to basically about 10 years ago, 15 years ago, deciding, you know what, maybe I just do training. And then niching down even more to just doing Python training. So nowadays, I would say that most days, I'm doing corporate training, as Trey said, no longer flying around the world, but rather now doing it from home online. And I've also been building up a product business over the last few years, where I have a whole bunch of online video courses, some email courses, and I guess 3 weeks ago, my Python book, Python Workout, it's actually a physical book. Remember those folks? Yes, I know, it's like a museum piece now. And so I've been having a fun time actually building up my business and learning what people want. It's like, find out what people want by asking them, provide them with that, when you know they buy it, and then you can ask them again, what would you like to buy next? And so that's been my strategy over the last number of months, and continuing to go in that direction more and more.
And that's really exciting and really good. I know actually that Manning has given our discounts to everyone at the conference if you want Reuven's book, so feel free to grab that if you would like. Paul is actually next on my screen.
Can you hear me okay? All right, cool.
Yeah.
I am so excited to be at PyCon Africa. I've been thinking about this all week, and I decided to roll out the T-shirt from the 1994 first PyCon in Maryland as a way to celebrate me finally getting a chance to participate with people in Africa. Hopefully the first of many. I got started a little bit in an earlier age of Python. I was co-founder of something called Zope, and we went through 3 rounds of financing, 14 million bucks. Instead of big life lessons, I'll tell a funny story, which has almost no entrepreneur value at all. In 1996, we were selling a $25,000 application server to the US government. The problem was, it fit on a floppy, a 3.5-inch disk, and that included Python. That doesn't feel like $25,000. So we decided to put it on a CD, because that feels like $25,000. The problem is the CD was 99.9% empty, which didn't feel like $25,000. So the way I remember it, which might be true, is we put it through -9. We did it +9 to inflate it, and we ran it several different times, and eventually it felt like $25,000. If I will give one piece of advice, it's something from Chris McDonough, the creator of Pyramid and supervisor, who was an employee of mine at the time when we did the last round of investment. He said, because it was a $12 million round, and he said, things will never be the same. And I remember looking at him and thinking, I've got 12 million reasons you're wrong. Well, he was right. If you go down the path of venture capital as part of entrepreneurship, taking on investment, things change. Be forewarned.
That's great. Thank you, Paul. I'm not sure if that's the end of the story. Is that the end of the story?
There is never an end to any of these stories.
Okay. Great. Thank you. You have a shirt that is 1 year old. Well, 1 year younger than me, which is
I really
wild.
didn't need to hear that.
That's okay. Matt is next on my screen. Paul, thank you for your story.
Mute myself. So, Paul, I'm curious if people ever unzipped or zipped up your application. Yeah, I'm Matt Harrison.
Being the Navy, you can imagine.
I'm Matt Harrison, and I guess I'm pretty similar to Trey and Reuven. I guess I paid for school through tutoring, and so I've always helped people and taught people, and I've found it pretty interesting that from my view, you can take someone who's getting like a C or a D in math, which is considered a hard subject for many people, and if they're given the right opportunities and the right practice, most of them can get an A. And just as I've continued, I mean, I still occasionally do tutoring, and it's pretty amazing. Like, a lot of people who have access to someone who can walk them through something are so much more advantaged, and it tends to be people with money because they can pay people to do things for them. And so anyway, long story short, I guess back in 2005 or 6, I started teaching Python courses at PyCon and other places, local conferences, and did tutorials. And about 7 years ago, and then started writing books. And so, I mean, this is probably my most popular book, but I recently did one for O'Reilly, Machine Learning Pocket Reference, and I have one that I just did, Panda's Cookbook, and I have another one that I've done with Michael Kennedy, and I've got other books, but just started writing books, and at that point, maybe 8 years ago now, there's just demand for people who wanted help, and so I started my company to do consulting, and have sort of transitioned mostly into training, similar to Trey and Reuven at this point. Yeah, it's good to have the worst boss and the best boss in the world. Whether that's me or my wife, I guess depends on the day. But I guess, you know, Trey was talking about a little bit of luck, and I've given talks before on like how to be a consultant as I guess the introvert. I mean, most people who are working with computers tend to work with computers because they don't want to, they'd rather work with something that's consistent and gives sort of logical responses rather than people who tend to be inconsistent and illogical. But my experience is that being successful in business requires putting yourself out there, and I think it's more about who you know, sort of, and to Reuven's point about what you know. I mean, you can go out and buy a book and learn most things, but you know, if you have the right connections with the right people, you can be quite successful. So I guess the point is, how do you get connections, and how do you get out there? And you know, right now it's sort of a networking in the web thing, and my advice would be expose yourself. You know, talks like conferences like this, blog posts are very useful as well. I found that LinkedIn and Twitter are useful as well, though your mileage may vary. There can be a lot of toxicity around as well. And I come from, I guess, a privileged white male point of view, so I don't deal with a lot of stuff that other people deal with. But just realize that, like, even, and I don't claim to understand things that other people are going through, but even when I post stuff in some of these platforms, there's immediately pushback and toxicity and negativity about that. There seem to be a lot of people whose goal in life is just to tear others down and blow out other people's candles, because I think that makes them feel better. And so if you want, I think right now we're in a virtual world. The internet's how we leverage one another. You just have to be aware that there are going to be dogs out there, and put on your tough shell and sort of mute them or ignore them. I don't know. That's my, probably went over 3 minutes, but.
Thank you, Matt. That's really good advice. Twitter is just a dangerous place sometimes. And yeah, I've been really enjoying all of your books, all of your online material. The PyCharm Humble Bundle is fantastic. I bought it a couple of weeks ago, and that's been really helpful. Julian is actually on my screen next, so it's
hey, Marlene.
To.
Hey, everyone. Can you hear me? Yeah? Okay, sweet. I just wasn't sure. Yeah, hey, everyone. I'm Julian Sequeira. I'm actually dialing in from Sydney, Australia. So the opposite side of the planet almost exactly. And yeah, I'm an entrepreneur with my best mate, who is to my right. That's Bob. And that way, down, whatever way. And we have a sort of unique story, so I won't steal all the thunder because he'll finish it off. This is like a song and dance sort of gag act. And we're pretty new to the whole entrepreneur scene. We only started off maybe 2016, and it was purely by chance. And we're sort of the story of, we just started putting our stuff out there. So, you know, in general, we started posting on our blog, but we did that because we wanted to just document what we were learning. We thought we were best mates. We're on the other side of the planet. Bob's in Spain, I'm here in Australia. And we thought, let's just learn Python together. And that was it. And we started writing a blog about it. We started challenging each other with code, with actual code challenges on the blog. And it just grew. Community formed around it. People loved it. They started coding with us, and now that's spawned our, you know, our entrepreneur sort of venture. And we have a code challenge platform. We do all sorts of other stuff, which I'll let Bob talk about in a minute. Sorry, Bob. But yeah, it's for us. I guess the lesson is just, and I know this is, we'll leave it for the Q&A and stuff. But the lesson for us is just get out there. Just get out there and start writing. There's no time like now. So I'll leave it there.
Muting myself and then forgetting. That's amazing, Julian. Thank you, and thank you for joining us from Australia. I know Anthony Shaw was here yesterday. I'm not sure if he's still here, but he's also from Australia. So it's nice to have a really broad community here, which is fun. Bob is next on my screen. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you hear me? Okay. Yeah, very excited to be here. Thanks for the invitation. Julian already did quite some introduction on PyBytes. So I will start with, I'm a software developer since 10, 15 years. I have a financial background, but became passionate about building websites and building tools to automate work, and partly automate my job. And then longtime friend with Julian, you just heard, and we always were passionate about this entrepreneurial venture. We were listening to the Tim Ferriss 4-Hour Work Week, the podcast, and we came at this point where we were also passionate about Python and programming, and that intersected back in 2016, and we just started with a blog. And I think that Matt highlighted, like, just get out there. And I want to put on top of it, like, you don't have the answers when you start, because we were just a blog. And then we started doing stuff and sharing and writing, document our learning, as Julian said. And that actually then turned into courses, a coding platform, and more recently coaching. So you don't have all the answers, but the only way to get the direction is to put yourself out there, not being afraid of making mistakes, iterate quickly, learn from those mistakes, and also build up a community. And that's one of the things we're most proud of, that we involved the community and got a lot of interaction going. And as we got feedback, we built out the business. And yeah, I was working as a software developer up until last month, and this month I became full-time dedicated to PyBytes, actually. So yeah, that's entrepreneurial dream come true. And I share it not to brag, but just like to show that something you build up over time will compound, right? So I think the content creation in that is also essential, that you keep going, and you don't, the first of your list, you will have 10 subscribers, and maybe your mom or dad will be 5 of them, right? I mean, don't let that discourage you, right? I mean, that's that first email that somebody starts to respond like, I really enjoyed this article, I really got something away from this, and that then fuels the fire. So don't expect, I build it and they will come. That will not happen, right? You have to kind of believe in it first.
That's good advice. Just, yay, great that moms are supporting people everywhere. And so cool, such a cool story, actually. I didn't know that about PyBytes, so really, really a very cool story. Mannie, I think, is going to ask us the next question.
Yeah. Okay, so looking at the current situation we find ourselves in, the pandemic and all, most developers, like people who are now coming, people in the tech space, would have this question of, if, for example, I want to start a business with Python, how do I start and when do I start? So it's a general question, so anyone can pick it up and start from there.
I have something that's been told to me where that's kind of very general. The best time to start a freelancing consulting business, working for yourself, is years before you start it. So this is not actually good advice, but the trick here is that you probably don't want to quit your day job immediately, because you're not going to be successful overnight. Or rather, you could be, but it's really, really unlikely. And I will say that, of all the risks that I have taken, they were slow-going risks, and many of them didn't pan out. And it's okay that they didn't pan out, because it wasn't the only risk I had at the time. So, whatever everyone else might say, if you're starting something, try not to make it the only thing you're putting all your, your eggs in that one basket, unless you think it's going to be a really successful basket, but you often don't know.
Yeah. Okay, Matt?
One book that I found useful, and it's somewhat U.S. centric, and that it has like tax stuff or whatever that's U.S. centric, is this weird book that has this weird name, The Coder's Path to Wealth and Independence. But it's sort of takes on that topic head on, and talks about choosing what to focus on and building a company and doing things that are profitable. I echo Trey's point about, like, one thing you'll find is that everything is like a funnel, and things that you think might happen, there's probabilities that they won't. So you need to like have more things that you think will happen because a lot of them won't happen. And so like not quitting your day job. I mean, I think Bob's an example of that as well, right? Until you have things going on. Echoing Reuven's earlier point, like sort of niching down, he was sort of doing everything and then decided, hey, if I focus on one thing, it's going to be easier for me, but it's probably more profitable as well because you can be known for that thing. But getting started can be hard, right? And so I think a lot of us started off as freelancers or doing that sort of thing, but a lot, I guess Julian and Bob are the exception where they started sort of doing content. So I think those freelancing and doing content, there's no stopping anyone from doing content these days. It's all up to you. So if someone says, how do I get started at, you know, making a blog, that's all on you. Freelancing might be a little bit harder, and initially that's getting your foot in the door. So like Trey said, having friends who have money or want something done is a good thing, but there are platforms as well. And initially you just need to sort of like, I might even do something for free, but what I can do at that point is I can put on LinkedIn that I'm a consultant. And so another piece of advice I would say is like, as soon as you've done something for someone else, it's sort of like moonlighting and you're not violating any company agreement or whatever, that you won't do that. I would put on either your blog or on LinkedIn, especially on LinkedIn. I don't know how LinkedIn is in Africa, but for US people or people where LinkedIn is a platform, just put there that like you have this consulting company. If it has a name rather than like random consultant, probably a little bit better, but at least it's establishing that, hey, I have done this. And when people come and look at your profile, they see that, yeah, you have your like day job, but you're also doing other things on the side. And so it establishes like, this is something that I do, and I'm a legitimate person doing this. I'm not some shady one-off thing. I do consulting or moonlighting on the side.
Two follow-ups real quick on what Matt said. Matt's note about Reuven niching down. I love this, that if you told me like you're a Python and Django developer, I know a few people to refer you to, you know, quickly, versus if you tell me you do Python stuff, I wouldn't necessarily think of those people. So I think that was really great advice. And I do think a lot of our, you know, comments probably reek of privilege a little bit, especially given that if you don't have a day job right now because of the pandemic, a lot of this probably isn't relevant yet. So you might want to wait on some of this advice.
Okay.
I'll jump in.
Even saying that, sorry, Julian, even saying that, I would say that a lot of this advice is not just advice for people who want to do their own thing. It's also great advice for someone who wants to get a job. Like putting yourself out there and like getting your first like coding job with someone else is a way to get a foot in the door.
Yeah, great point.
Yep. So I was going to just say, you know, we're talking about entrepreneurism here, right? So I think the hardest step for anyone to start is, where do I start, right? And you might have that idea, you might have that, oh, one day I'd love to build this amazing app that does X, Y, and Z and changes the world, right? The catch is, and I think we've all been there, where we start to develop things like that, and as Bob said, build it. It's not a case of build it and they will come. So my encouragement to try and encourage people not to waste time if you're really pushing down this path and you're dedicated to it is, you know, have the field that you're passionate about, that you're interested in, that you feel you can contribute to, and just do the research. You know, it may be kind of boring. It may, you know, be tough to do it after you work all day, or you do whatever it is you're doing the day, and you get home 5 p.m. and you're exhausted, you just want to watch TV. You're going to have to sit there and do your market research, right? But what you want to find out is the pain of the people that you want to serve in the field that you're interested in. So if you're interested in, say, data science, nice buzzword, right? So there's so many pieces of it, as Matt will know. But if you're interested in that space, right, well, go and spend time with the people who want to learn data science, who spend their time in it, and learn what their pain points are, and see if there's something you can build to solve that problem, and then go hell for leather and jump straight in there and go, I'm going to build that for you, and start your cycles. And as the gents are saying, you know, so I'm still in my day job. You know, I'm not ready to jump out of that yet. Sydney is a very expensive place to live. So, yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Great. So, Paul?
I'll make it quick. In addition to discussing what you can do, I'm going to steal from Reuven, who really planted this idea. What can we do for you? We had a conversation about this as part of the Humble Bundle beforehand, and probably all of us could do something to help one of you get a little bit of attention. And so, for example, I'm the luckiest guy in the world. PyCharm actually pays me to be a developer advocate. I should pay them. Don't tell them I said that. But if one of you in Ghana or elsewhere are doing something cool and want to get a little bit of reputation, drop me a line. If you're willing to suck it up and do it in PyCharm, then we'll do a blog interview with you. Maybe we'll do a webinar with you. We'll do some way to talk with you to help you get yourself established.
Great.
Okay, that's really awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, you heard Paul, so DM him or something. If you can't, I mean, I'm sure you can DM him on Twitter, or you can drop him a line here in the People tab. I will probably create something in PyCharm myself and take that opportunity myself as well. But so we would love to hear from the people who are watching. Email is good, Trey is saying. So if there's a preferred way that any of us can reach out to you, just also let us know in the comments what would be best for you. So we do want to have some time where people can ask questions, and I would like to ask everyone, if you have a question, please put it in the comments section while people are writing their questions, so we can start to kind of compile those questions. I would like to give like 30 seconds to a minute to each panelist to talk a little bit about. So I was going to say, you know, all of you are pretty established, and most of you live in great countries that are like that are stable countries, relatively, I would say. But what would you say? Have you ever experienced like imposter syndrome? I know for myself, I feel all the time like, you know, like I feel like people don't believe me if I'm saying something, even if I feel like I know what I'm talking about. I feel like this fear of putting myself out there and trying to be, you know, proactive about what I'm doing. And so if you have faced imposter syndrome, what would be your advice to people on how to get over that, what to do in that situation if you're feeling afraid of maybe putting yourself out there? And have you actually felt that before, even yourself? So, yes, I see Reuven's hand up. Yeah.
Yes, a lot. So basically, I mean, I now offer, about 10, 15 different courses. And the first few times that I teach any of those, it's after usually months of research and some all-nighters and sweating through it. And then I get to a company to teach it, and I'm sure they are going to see through me. They're going to see that this is the first time I'm teaching it, and it's going to be terrible. And they're going to ask me the question, and I'm not going to know the answer, and it's going to be terrible. I'm going to cry, and on and on. Or I go to teach at a company for the first time. It's like the first time I went to teach at Apple. I'm like, well, it's Apple. All the people are brilliant. They're going to grill me. And you know what? People who came back happy to be of service. I don't know. In any event, it turns out that people are people, and they are nice, and they want to learn. And if you come in with lots of preparation and lots of humility, they will understand. So when I teach something for the first time, if people ask me something, I And I don't know the answer. I say, I don't know. And they're like, oh, that's good. I'll see you tomorrow. And I'll tell you the answer. And it's good for them. And good for me. And so treating people, we're all together, doing development, training. That's okay too. Everyone's learning, everyone's always improving.
Oh, that's awesome. Yes, there's a bit of feedback, was a bit of feedback in Reuven's voice, but that was a fantastic answer, and I'm glad to know that you also have imposter syndrome. I don't know if anyone else, I saw Matt's hand up actually as well.
Yeah, I'll just be quick. Someone just said recently, and it sort of stood out to me, they said the smartest people I know say, I don't know a lot. And yeah, I think it's just natural to have imposter syndrome. And like I said, I guarantee if you put stuff out on the internet, there are going to be haters. So I realize that like for some people that just impacts their mental health or whatnot, but it kind of is what it is as much as it's horrible. So, I mean, it sounds kind of trite to say suck it up, but it might be a case of ignoring it and muting those, but you know, realize that there's probably always someone who's smarter than you, there's probably always someone who's better than you, but not comparing yourself and you know, doing the best you can. So
who else wants Paul or Trey? I don't know, either one.
I have not on my own, I mean, I have had imposter syndrome, but I more want to give advice on imposter syndrome in general. It's been pointed out to me more than a couple times before probably that whenever I have imposter syndrome, it's usually not that bad in the sense that I get it. I feel it. I'm comparing myself to someone else, but I am also a white, cis, heterosexual man who lives in California. Like, I don't have people telling me very often, well, you don't know that thing, or that's not a thing you know. Like, I'm assumed to know things when I walk in a room sometimes that I don't know. Like, I walk in, people assume that I know things I do not know at a tech meetup because I happen to be friends with an organizer or something, or I don't know, look like I belong there somehow. So the imposter syndrome I get isn't reinforced as badly as it could be. So I do want to note that, you know, some of the advice we may give may not apply to your situation. And if you need to get over imposter syndrome that is from outside, that's something I don't know how to deal with. I know how to deal with the imposter syndrome inside, which is just keep pushing through, you know, trying to tell yourself that you are good enough for this, and you can keep going. I do want to note, though, that if you see someone who seems successful, they're probably also faking it, or they were faking it. Or they were faking it and they're still faking it, but they're really good at telling themselves they're not faking it, because that's how we all work. I mean, you know, when I got into training, when I got into consulting, all of this, I didn't know what I was doing. And I still don't really know what I was doing, but I found a particular formula that seems like it's working, and I just keep doing that thing.
That's
Yeah.
I said Paul is next, and then we'll go to Bob. Yeah.
I will try to make everybody feel better with the worst imposter syndrome story of all time. For 3 years, we employed Guido, Barry Warsaw, Tim Peters, Jeremy Hilton, and Fred Drake. You want to feel like an imposter? But what I learned actually at this thing, what I learned was my role in the drama was not to be smart. My role in the drama was to bring coffee to the smart people. We all have something we can do. I'm decent at organizing, so that's my lane. And you know who's, I almost said shitty, but I can't say shitty. You know who's bad at organizing? Programmers. So I have a lane, and I stay in my lane. And that's why I don't feel like an imposter, because I acknowledge my inadequacy.
Thank you, Paul, for that amazing piece of advice that I truly relate. So that's awesome. Bob is next.
Yeah, that's really awesome advice. We can always bring something to the table, right? However small it is.
Yeah.
No, just want to add on quickly. Julian and myself realized that imposter syndrome never really goes away. I mean, we still face it every day, and especially when we take on bigger challenges. But we just became to embrace it, because every time we do something major, we get this nagging feeling, or somebody just destroys a tweet, or it can be nasty. Don't go on Reddit. And it can hurt, it can hit your confidence, but we kind of try to hack the mindset as well by saying whatever they say. Actually, if we get critique, that means we're doing something meaningful, because there will always be somebody that is going to disagree. And we enjoy it now. I mean, that still hurts, but that means that, because if we don't polarize it to a certain extent, then it's kind of meaningless, right? So you want to create a little bit of, I think it's a good feedback loop as well.
That's awesome. I'm terrified of Reddit myself, so I don't have a Reddit account. So that's good advice, Bob. Julian, to wrap this up. Yes.
No, I was going to say, do you mind if I answer Vince's question from the chat?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, so Vince is... Yeah. Oh, cool. No, cool. Vince, I just wanted to, because I did type in there for a second. So Vince is talking about, how do you balance it all? How do you stay motivated? How do you get this done when you have all of these other responsibilities? And this hits home for me as a very big one for me, because I've got health issues in my family. I work a full-time job, 9 to 5. I have a 1.5 hour commute every day, 2 kids under 7, and a 3rd child on the way. So it's insane, but it's not impossible, right? And the catch is, it's about what drives you. You have to think of that goal. You have to think about what you want, and then it doesn't come down to time management. It comes down to priority management. So believe me, my house is not the cleanest place on the planet with regards to the kids' clutter everywhere. But that's because, I choose on a weeknight to sit there after they go to bed at 7 o'clock to call Bob and start working on content, start working on fulfillment, working with our community and all of that stuff. But the only thing that keeps me going is that goal. It does help having Bob, my best friend, as an accountability partner as well. So there's a tip for you as well. So we hold each other accountable. But also I give myself that dedicated break of my weekend is sacred. There is no work on the weekend. But that means Monday to Friday, it's get it done. Saturday and Sunday, it's kids, family, Netflix, video games, you name it. Go nuts. But when you come up with that sort of a disciplined, almost routine, I want to say, then that's what you can do to try and get yourself through it. But remember, mix the crazy work with the fun, and you'll find a balance. And Jürgen, with regards to getting the kids to bed at 7 p.m., pretty sure it's not legal in most countries. No, I'm kidding. I just read them a story. They fall asleep. Done and dusted. There you go.
Mannie, do you want to go ahead? Thank you for that. That's amazing. Mannie, you can go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. So he took the first question. The second question I can pick here from Michael. He's saying, how can you efficiently drive innovation and new product cycles, especially in an economic market that is now phasing into technology? He's trying to emphasize that this is mostly the case in some African countries. Yeah, so it's an open question. Anyone can go for it.
I feel like I'm not qualified to answer this question, so I'll leave this to others. Matt?
Can you just restate the question? I'm sorry. I think I got it, but I just want to double check.
Yeah, how can you efficiently drive innovation and new product cycles, especially in an economy market that is now phasing into technology?
Yeah, I mean, I don't live in Africa. I live in the U.S. I do have a friend who tries to put, who's African, of African descent, who's my neighbor, and has repeated, like when I've been involved with startups, he's like, okay, how can I take this and adopt this for the African market? We're 5 years or however many behind you. And I mean, this has been done in Germany as well. There's a company that basically takes every big technology in the US or whatever and just basically copies it and makes a German version of it. I wouldn't try and make something, you know, innovative necessarily. I would try and say, hey, what is out there, and can I adapt something to bring it to an African, you know, maybe slightly to the local audience. Having said that, you know, I think I and most everyone here is sort of more in the small solopreneur market. I mean, Paul's sort of an exception, and so I mean, a lot of, you know, if you're looking for big technology, that might be like VC sort of funding things versus you know, making a product or an offering that's small, but you can support it with yourself initially, and then, you know, once it gets profitable, bootstrapping it, pump it out to others to sort of help you grow that.
Very good. Maybe Reuven and Paul.
Look, at the end of the day, technology is a way to solve problems. And wherever there are going to be people, there are going to be problems. And so having a business that uses technology to solve them is just a matter of connecting the dots. So wherever you live, even if it's not super technological, and even if people don't know necessarily about Python, they are having problems, and you can almost certainly help them. How you help them is, well, that's where your knowledge, your local knowledge, your understanding, your ability to speak the language, and I don't mean like speak the human language, like be on their same wavelength and connect with them and ask them questions. That's where you have an advantage over all of these huge companies and even those of us in other places. So use your advantage to improve people's lives and build a business out of it. And you'll probably find that there's a slice of problems that you can solve that no one has any understanding of, and those people, when they realize it, will refer more and more people to you, and that's how you'll have success.
Definitely. Thank you. And Paul?
Can I answer with a story?
Yeah, sure.
And it unlike my other stories, it's true.
Okay.
So it's November 1998. PyCon is in Texas. And we have a commercial application server called Zope. It's not really selling that well. Written totally in Python. And our competitors are billion-dollar companies. Netscape at the time was selling an application server, Microsoft, etc. Eric Raymond is there to give the keynote, and there's a Washington Post journalist following him around for a week to write a story on this new thing called open source. So I called back to Virginia. I talked to the VC and the other founders. I was like, dude, if we're going to do it, if we're going to open source this damn thing, we're doing it now. Because we're going to make an announcement, and it's going to be in the Washington Post. So we did, and it got in the Washington Post. And as soon as the words came out of my mouth, I knew that was the thing that the reporter was going to print. And the lesson in that story is you can row across the Atlantic Ocean, but that's pretty hard. There's this thing called the wind, and if you just put up a sail, the wind will do all the work and take you across the ocean. So find something that you can ride the coattails of that is still unique enough that you can add value to it and let it do all the work.
Oh, that's really good advice. I think that's also something I was thinking about in terms of, you know, how do you get started from marketing and getting yourself first going? And that's really great advice. Thank you, Paul. Trey?
Yeah, I do think that's great advice as well, that, you know, you don't want to be fighting against the flow if you can. Go with the times. But I realized, you know, earlier I was kind of joking when I said I don't feel qualified to answer this. I don't feel qualified to answer it, but I do feel like the best advice I can give is if you can think of other people online or elsewhere who have been there before, and not necessarily they're in the same situation, but for example, I can think of a few friends who are in US towns that are not known for their technology, who are starting tech hubs. And so it's a new thing they're bringing in, but it is with the times. It's a trend that's kind of, coming in. And so if you can find other people who've been in a similar kind of situation in terms of, going with the times, going with the flow, and contact them, learn from them, that's the biggest advice I can give. Because I feel like all of us pretty much are where we are because of reaching out to someone or having someone introduced to us or some sort of networking event, which is really just making friends, as I said in the chat earlier.
Yeah, that's great. I think networking has really stood out as well as something pretty consistent for us to do. So thank you. I don't know, maybe Mannie, let's take one or two questions. We're a little over, but maybe one or two more questions.
Yeah. Okay, I'll take the question I'm seeing now. It says, what do you think is the best method for integrating with other business communities that may not directly be in the tech space?
See them as your clients if you can. I feel like that's your clients and your peers, because if you show up to where your potential clients are and you can speak their language, be friends with them, they see you as a peer. You show up and you're like, I met a lawyer at a tech meetup. She was there to meet tech people who might want legal services. She didn't say that, but she just kept showing up to the tech meetup, making friends with tech people.
That's a good idea.
Great.
Reuven.
Yeah, and okay.
Oh, sorry.
So I would say, yeah, exactly that. There's so many developers who say, I don't understand. I go on all the technical forums and I tell them that I'm a developer and they're not hiring me, right? Those are your peers. Those are not your clients or your potential clients, right? And in fact, I would say from my experience, maybe the others would agree, technical companies are the worst clients. It's the non-technical companies who are in awe of what you're doing, aren't going to nitpick on what you're saying and doing, and they'll be like, whoa, you did such great stuff, come back. So find those non-technical clients, solve their problems, they will love you, and they'll think you're their super technical wizard and keep paying you.
Great advice. So let's look for non-tech places as well to hang out. A little scary, but reasonable, I guess. I don't know. Mannie, do we want to take one more question and then we're going to...
Yeah, I think the last question I can see is, what helps you to be consistent, especially when you have been running your business for a while and it is not growing in the way you expected or you expect?
Can I go with that one?
Okay. Yeah, Julian.
I got in quick. So that one is 110% a mindset issue. You sometimes have to find that balance between do you just give up and try something new, or do you keep hammering away at it? So my recommendation there is, one, don't just give up straight away, because we all hit those hurdles. We all have to climb that mountain. We'll all have rough days, sometimes rough weeks or a rough month where we'll just be like, what have I done? What am I doing with my life? And at the end of the day, talk to people. My favorite thing to do is to just talk to people. I've spoken to every one of these people that's on this panel right now and had different levels of conversations with them about stuff that's been on my mind before. And, this is one of my favorite things, is when you talk to people, you get stuff off your chest, and it doesn't even have to be someone in the industry. It could be one of your best mates, stranger down the street at the bus stop, doesn't matter. Get it off your chest and just keep working away. Just keep trying, and every little chip away at it is going to get you closer to your goal. But it's all up here, right? You just got to keep pushing.
Paul?
Can I tell a funny story?
Yeah.
So it's 1996, and we have a few employees, my co-founder and I, Rob Page, and commitment when you don't have enough money for payroll. That's when things get real, and we didn't have enough money for payroll. And we said, we're going to go into the office on Sunday, and we're going to put XYZ in the spreadsheet. And if it comes out PDQ, we're going to announce the next day that we're closing the company, because it's just not fair. So we put in XYZ, it came out PDQ. And we're like, damn, we're going to have to close the company. I called my wife. I said, we're going to have to close the company. She said, you will. I can't believe you after all that, blah, 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 blah. And we didn't close the company. And sure enough, 5 days later, the check from the Navy came in.
Wow. Yeah, Trey.
Real quick, I wouldn't see it as closing shop necessarily, as pivoting, which is a fancy business word for not doing the thing you thought you were going to do previously. Because I've pivoted many times in the sense of I was doing one thing, I wasn't getting work. Well, maybe I'll go look at this other thing instead, you know, kind of eyeing into this other thing. That's how I got into training, was pivoting into training. That's how I started making Python morsels online, pivoting into that. That's how I keep changing what exactly I'm doing with this online thing, is realizing my customers want something different than I'm giving them sometimes. So and pivoting may mean pivoting into getting a job not working for yourself anymore. You're pivoting in your career, and that's okay. You're going with whatever the flow tends to be taking you, wherever that opportunity is at the moment.
Yeah, Reuven.
Yep.
I'll just add that one of the advantages of being a small operation, in my case, a one-person operation, is that I can make those changes. I don't have to have big meetings and organizational discussions of who we're going to have to hire and we're going to have to lay off. Right? It means the onus is on me. So, like, I have the good parts and the bad parts. And so barely a year has gone by, 2 years have gone by, and having my business when I haven't said, the landscape is changing. And now, of course, the landscape around the world is changing, and organizations are panicked. What are we going to do? And I mean, I've had years of panic experience. So now I can put that to good use and say, okay, how can I now sort of take what I've got, the raw materials, and try to address the problems that people have and remain in business?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Well, we've actually run out of time. Thank you for that last comment, Reuven. This has been really, really helpful. I think it's been really fun, and I've personally learned a lot from this session. I do want to say that everyone on this panel did say that they are interested in helping to support the community a bit more. And, you know, we want to hear as well from anyone watching what you would like. So I know that there are people in the comments, and then there are also people who will watch this later on YouTube. But just let us know if you would like to have more panel sessions like this, if you'd like to have, I don't know, if you'd like to have blog posts or anything creative, let us know how we can use them as a resource for our community to be able to grow, and also be able to start also being consultants or whatever it is we can do. So thank you so much for your time. We really, really appreciate it. Yeah, that's probably going to be the end of the session. If anyone has any questions, feel free to ask or feel free to message them. But thank you so much for joining us.